The blizzard hit so fast that Bennett barely had time to register the white wall of snow before her rental car skidded sideways on the mountain road. Her heart hammered as she gripped the steering wheel, fighting to control the slide. The vehicle spun once, twice, before coming to a jarring stop against a snowbank. Diana sat frozen, her breath coming in short gasps as snow pelted the windshield with such force she could barely see 3 feet ahead. This was supposed to be a peaceful vacation. A week away from her demanding job as a museum curator in Seattle, away from her ex who would not stop calling, away from everything. The mountain lodge she had booked promised solitude and stunning views. What it had not promised was a blizzard that the weather reports had completely missed. Diana tried the ignition. The engine sputtered and died. She tried again. Nothing. Perfect. Just perfect. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course not. She was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by towering pines that were rapidly disappearing behind sheets of white. The cold was already seeping into the car. Diana grabbed her coat from the passenger seat and pulled it on, then stuffed her phone and wallet into her pockets. Through the swirling snow, she could just make out what looked like a structure about 100 yards up the road. Not the lodge she had booked, but it would have to do. The wind hit her like a physical force the moment she opened the car door. Diana lowered her head and pushed forward, her boots sinking into snow that was already shin-deep. Each step was a battle. The cold burned her lungs and stung her exposed skin. She could barely keep her eyes open against the assault of ice and wind. By the time she reached the building, her legs were shaking from exertion and cold. It was a lodge larger and more imposing than she had expected, built from dark timber and stone. Warm light glowed from the windows. Diana practically fell against the heavy wooden door, pounding on it with numb fists. "Hello, please? I need help." No answer. She pounded harder, panic creeping into her chest. She could not go back out into that storm. She would not make it. Finally, the door swung open. Diana stumbled forward into warmth and light, nearly colliding with the man who stood there. "What the hell?" His voice was sharp, irritated. Diana looked up, still catching her breath. The man was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that was slightly too long and piercing gray eyes that regarded her with obvious annoyance. He wore a simple black sweater and jeans, but something about the way he carried himself suggested money and authority. "I'm sorry," Diana managed, her teeth chattering. "My car went off the road. The storm. I need help. This is private property." His tone was flat, unwelcoming. Diana stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious? There's a blizzard outside. I'll freeze to death if you make me leave." He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Diana could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Finally, he stepped back, opening the door wider. "Fine. But you leave as soon as the storm clears. Trust me, I have no intention of staying longer than necessary." Diana stepped inside, dripping snow onto the polished hardwood floor. The interior was stunning. Vaulted ceilings with exposed beams, a massive stone fireplace that dominated the main room, leather furniture that probably cost more than her annual salary. This was not just a lodge. This was wealth. The man closed the door and turned to face her. "There's a bathroom down that hall. Get out of those wet clothes before you get hypothermia. I'll find you something dry to wear." He walked away before Diana could respond, disappearing up a wooden staircase. She stood there for a moment, water pooling around her boots, wondering what she had just walked into. The bathroom was as impressive as the rest of the house, all natural stone and gleaming fixtures. Diana peeled off her soaked clothes with shaking hands. Her fingers were still numb, making the simple task frustratingly difficult. She had just wrapped herself in a towel when there was a knock at the door. "Clothes," the man's voice said curtly. Diana cracked the door open. He stood there with folded garments, his eyes carefully averted. She took them without a word and he left immediately. The sweatpants were too big and the sweater hung on her frame, but they were warm and dry. Diana emerged from the bathroom to find the man standing by the fireplace, staring into the flames. "Thank you," she said. He glanced at her briefly. "You can sleep in the guest room upstairs. Second door on the left. Stay out of the other rooms." "I'm Diana, by the way, Diana Bennett." He hesitated, as if debating whether to give his name. Nathan Foster." "Thank you for letting me stay, Nathan. I know you didn't want to." "No, I didn't." He turned back to the fire. "But I'm not going to let someone die on my doorstep either." Diana felt a flash of irritation at his rudeness but swallowed it down. She was the one intruding, after all. "Is there a phone I could use? Mine has no signal. Landline's out. Storm must have taken down the lines." "Cell tower too, obviously. So we're completely cut off. Looks that way." He did not sound particularly concerned about it. Diana moved closer to the fire, holding out her still cold hands to the warmth. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. She could hear the creak and groan of tree branches bending under the weight of snow and ice. "How long do these storms usually last?" she asked. "Could be a day. Could be 3. Nathan walked to the kitchen area, which was separated from the main room by a long granite counter. "There's food in the pantry and fridge. Help yourself to whatever." "What about you? Do you live here?" "That's none of your business." His tone was cold, final. Diana bit back a retort. Fine. If he wanted to be hostile, she would just stay out of his way. She found some bread and cheese in the impressive kitchen and made herself a simple sandwich, very aware of Nathan's brooding presence across the room. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackling fire and the howling wind. Diana ate quickly, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline from the accident and the desperate trek through the storm was wearing off, leaving her drained. "I'm going to bed," she announced. Nathan grunted in acknowledgement, not bothering to look up from whatever he was doing on his laptop at the dining table. The guest room was beautiful, with a queen-sized bed covered in a thick duvet and pillows that looked like clouds. Diana crawled under the covers, still wearing the borrowed clothes. Despite her exhaustion, sleep did not come easily. Her mind kept circling back to the strange, rude man downstairs. Nathan Foster. Something about him felt familiar, though she could not place why. When Diana finally woke, pale gray light was filtering through the curtains. She checked her phone. 9 in the morning and still no signal. Outside, the snow was still falling, though not as violently as the night before. She made her way downstairs, following the scent of coffee. Nathan was in the kitchen, standing at the stove. He glanced at her briefly as she entered. "Coffee's in the pot," he said. "Thanks." Diana poured herself a cup, savoring the warmth and the caffeine. Still snowing. Forecast says it should stop by tonight, but the roads won't be clear for at least another day after that. How do you know the forecast if everything's out? Satellite internet. Separate system. He slid scrambled eggs onto 2 plates and added toast. He set one plate in front of Diana without ceremony. "You didn't have to make me breakfast. You're here. You need to eat." He took his plate and sat at the far end of the counter, as far from her as possible. They ate in awkward silence. Diana studied him covertly. He was probably in his early 30s, with sharp, handsome features and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. There was something wounded in them, something that belied his cold exterior. "So what brings you up to the mountains in winter?" Diana asked, trying to make conversation. "Privacy." "That's not really an answer." Nathan looked at her directly for the first time since she had sat down. I don't owe you my life story just because you're stuck here. I'm just trying to be civil. I didn't ask you to be. He finished his eggs and rinsed his plate in the sink. There are books in the library if you're bored. Stay out of the West Wing. He left the room before Diana could respond. She sat there, gripping her coffee mug, torn between frustration and curiosity. What was his problem? And what was in the West Wing that he was so adamant about keeping private? Diana spent the morning exploring the parts of the lodge she was allowed in. The library was impressive, with floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with books on every subject imaginable. She pulled down a novel and tried to read, but her attention kept wandering to the window and the endless white outside. Nathan was nowhere to be seen. Diana wondered if he was hiding in whatever forbidden area he had warned her away from. By afternoon, the cabin fever was setting in. Diana decided to brave Nathan's attitude and seek him out. She found him in a room she had not noticed before, a sort of office with a massive desk and multiple computer screens. He was on a video call, his voice low and intense. I don't care what the board thinks. Tell them the decision stands and I won't be taking questions until... He noticed Diana in the doorway and his expression darkened. I'll call you back. He ended the call abruptly. I thought I made it clear you should stay out of certain areas. You said the West Wing. This isn't the West Wing. Diana crossed her arms. Who are you really? Excuse me. The satellite internet, the expensive everything, the business calls. You're not just some random guy hiding in the mountains. Nathan stood, his height suddenly intimidating. My identity is none of your concern. You're a temporary guest due to unfortunate circumstances. Nothing more. Fine. Keep your secrets. Diana turned to leave, then paused. But you know what? Being rude to someone who's done nothing to you just makes you seem like a jerk, regardless of who you are or what you're hiding from. She walked away before he could respond, her heart pounding. She should not have said that. He was letting her stay in his home, after all, but his attitude was infuriating. Diana returned to the library and actually managed to lose herself in a book for a few hours. When she emerged, it was getting dark outside. The snow had finally stopped, leaving everything buried under what looked like several feet of white. She found Nathan in the kitchen again, this time making what smelled like pasta sauce. He did not acknowledge her presence as she entered. That smells good, Diana offered tentatively. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. His tone was neutral, not quite as hostile as before. Can I help with anything? No. Diana sighed and sat at the counter, watching him work. He moved with practiced efficiency, clearly comfortable in the kitchen. It was oddly mesmerizing. Look, she said finally. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. You've been kind enough to let me stay here and I shouldn't have pushed. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, stirring the sauce. You weren't entirely wrong. I have been rude. This situation just isn't what I came here for. What did you come here for? He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Peace, quiet, time away from everything. I can understand that. Diana traced a pattern on the granite countertop. I was trying to get away too. Bad breakup, stressful job. I just wanted a week where no one needed anything from me. What do you do? I'm a museum curator. Art history, mostly Renaissance and Baroque periods. Something flickered in Nathan's expression. Interest, maybe. That's a long way from the corporate world. Is that where you come from? Corporate? Something like that. He drained the pasta and divided it between two plates, topping each with sauce and fresh parmesan. He set one in front of Diana. This looks amazing, thank you. They ate together, and this time the silence felt less oppressive. Diana could sense Nathan thawing slightly, though he was still guarded. You really live here? Diana asked. Or is this more of a retreat place? Retreat. I bought it a few years ago. Somewhere to go when the city gets overwhelming. What city? Seattle. Deanna nearly dropped her fork. I live in Seattle, small world. Nathan looked at her with those intense gray eyes. Very small. Something passed between them in that moment, a recognition of shared space, shared frustrations, shared escape. Deanna felt her pulse quicken slightly and pushed the feeling away. This was not why she was here. After dinner, they migrated to the couches near the fireplace. Nathan built up the fire while Deanna browsed the movie collection she had discovered under the massive television. "You mind if I put something on?" she asked. "Go ahead." She chose an old comedy, something light and undemanding. To her surprise, Nathan settled onto the other end of the couch instead of disappearing to wherever he had been hiding all day. They watched in comfortable silence. At one point, Deanna laughed at a particularly funny scene and glanced over to find Nathan watching her instead of the screen. He quickly looked away, but not before she caught something soft in his expression, something that made her breath catch. When the movie ended, Deanna stood and stretched. "I should probably get to bed. Thank you for dinner. And the movie. And not letting me freeze to death." The corner of Nathan's mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "You're welcome." Deanna headed upstairs, very aware of his gaze following her. Once in the guest room, she sat on the bed and took a deep breath. What was happening? She barely knew this man. He had been nothing but cold and rude since she arrived. But there was something underneath that exterior, something that called to her. She shook her head. It was just proximity and circumstance. Nothing more. The next morning, Diana woke to sunshine streaming through the windows. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world transformed into a glittering white wonderland. She grabbed her phone out of habit and was shocked to see a single bar of signal. She quickly called the rental company about her car. The news was not good. The car had sustained damage and would need to be towed. But with the roads still impassable, that would not happen until tomorrow at the earliest. They would arrange for a replacement vehicle to be delivered to the lodge. Diana made her way downstairs to share the news. She found Nathan outside on the deck, shoveling snow. He had stripped down to a thermal shirt despite the cold, and Deanna could see the flecks of muscles in his back and shoulders as he worked. She swallowed hard and stepped outside. "Morning," she called. Nathan turned, breathing hard from exertion. His cheeks were flushed from the cold and the work. "Morning. Sleep well." "I did, actually. I just talked to the rental company. My car's damaged, but they'll deliver a replacement tomorrow, so I'll be out of your hair soon." Something crossed his face. Disappointment. But it was gone so quickly Deanna thought she might have imagined it. "Roads still need to clear," he said. "Right, so probably tomorrow afternoon." Deanna hugged herself against the cold. "Is there anything I can do to help? You could make breakfast. I'm starving." Deanna smiled. "I think I can manage that." She went back inside and explored the well-stocked kitchen more thoroughly. She found eggs, bacon, and fresh vegetables. By the time Nathan came in 30 minutes later, stamping snow off his boots, she had a full spread ready. "Impressive," Nathan said, surveying the table. "I have hidden talents." They ate together, and Deanna noticed that Nathan seemed different today, less closed off, more present. He asked her questions about her work, and she found herself telling him about the exhibits she had curated, the pieces that had moved her, the thrill of uncovering history through art. "There's this painting in our collection," Deanna said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "It's a small piece, not particularly famous. But when you look at it closely, you can see where the artist made changes, where they struggled with the composition. It's like seeing directly into their mind, that moment of creation, preserved forever." Nathan was watching her intently. "You really love it." "I do. It's not just about the art itself. It's about the connection, the human element. These were real people who lived and loved and struggled just like us, and they left pieces of themselves behind. That's beautiful. His voice was soft, genuine. Deanna felt heat rise to her cheeks. Sorry, I get carried away sometimes. Don't apologize. It's refreshing to hear someone talk about their work with actual passion. You don't have passion for your work. Nathan's expression shuddered slightly. It's complicated. Everything seems complicated with you. Deanna said it gently, without accusation. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. I suppose that's fair. I haven't been particularly open. You don't owe me anything. I'm just a stranger who barged into your sanctuary. You're not really a stranger anymore, though, are you? Nathan met her eyes. I'm sorry I've been difficult. The truth is, I came here to escape some things I didn't want to deal with. And then you showed up and I couldn't just shut the world out anymore. What are you trying to escape from? He was quiet for a long time. Deanna waited, not pushing. Expectations, he said finally. Responsibilities. A life that doesn't feel like mine anymore. Deanna nodded slowly. I understand that more than you might think. They cleaned up breakfast together, moving around the kitchen with an ease that surprised them both. When Deanna reached for a dish at the same time as Nathan, their hands brushed. The contact was electric. They both froze, then pulled away quickly. Sorry, Deanna muttered. It's fine. But Nathan's voice was rough. The day unfolded with unexpected ease. Nathan suggested they take a walk in the snow, and Diana agreed eagerly, desperate for fresh air and movement. He loaned her proper winter gear from a closet that seemed to be stocked for guests. Outside, the world was pristine and silent. Their breath formed clouds in the crisp air. Nathan led her along a trail that wound through the trees, pointing out landmarks and views. The snow came up to their knees in places, making the walk challenging but exhilarating. This is incredible, Deanna said, stopping to take in the vista of snow-covered peaks stretching to the horizon. How did you find this place? I was looking for somewhere completely separate from my regular life, somewhere no one would think to look for me. I saw the listing and bought it the same day. That's quite a purchase to make so impulsively. I can afford to be impulsive. There was something bitter in his tone. That must be nice. Nathan looked at her sharply. You think so? I don't know. I've never had that luxury. Deanna started walking again. I work hard for what I have. Every vacation is carefully budgeted, every expense considered. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to just do something without worrying about the cost. Money doesn't solve problems. It just creates different ones. Spoken like someone who has it. Fair point. Nathan caught up to her, but I mean it. Wealth comes with expectations, obligations. People want things from you. They see you differently. You never know who's genuine and who just wants access to your bank account. Diana thought about that. Is that why you're hiding up here? Someone wanted something from you. Everyone wants something from me. He was quiet for a moment. My company went public 5 years ago. Overnight, my net worth went from comfortable to absurd. And suddenly, everyone I knew, everyone I met, they all saw me differently. Even the woman I was dating at the time, I found out she had been selling stories about me to gossip sites. That's awful. I'm sorry. It's been 3 years since I trusted anyone enough to let them close. It's easier to just keep everyone at arm's length. Deanna stopped walking and turned to face him. Is that what you're doing with me, keeping me at arm's length? Nathan met her gaze, and Diana saw something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. I'm trying to, but you're making it difficult. Her heart was racing. Why? Because you're real. You didn't know who I was when you knocked on that door. You weren't impressed by the house or trying to get something from me. You were just a person who needed help. And these past 2 days, even though I've been rude and cold, you've been genuine, kind, yourself." Diana found she had moved closer to him without realizing it. "Who are you, Nathan? I mean, really?" He hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. "Nathan Foster, CEO of Foster Technologies. We develop sustainable energy solutions. My company is worth about $8 billion. Diana's eyes widened. $8 billion, with a B, with a B. "Oh my God, I've heard of Foster Technologies. You're the one who revolutionized solar panel efficiency." "That's me." He was watching her carefully, as if waiting for her to change, to see him differently, but Diana just laughed, a little breathlessly. "Well, that explains the attitude. You're used to people wanting things from you. You're not going to treat me differently now, should I? You're still the same guy who made me pasta and shoveled snow this morning. The same guy who's been hiding in the mountains because he's overwhelmed by his life. Money doesn't change that." Something in Nathan's expression softened completely. "You're remarkable. Do you know that?" Diana felt her cheeks flush. "I'm really not. I'm just ordinary." "There's nothing ordinary about you." They stood there in the snow, the winter sun filtering through the pine branches, and Diana felt the world shift. This was dangerous. She was leaving tomorrow. This was just a moment stolen from real life, not something that could last. But when Nathan reached out and brushed a snowflake from her cheek, his touch gentle despite his calloused hands, Diana found she did not care about practicality or sense. "We should head back," Nathan said softly. "You're getting cold." They walked back to the lodge in charged silence. Diana was hyper-aware of Nathan beside her, the occasional brush of their arms as they navigated the narrow trail. Something had shifted between them. Some barrier had fallen, and Diana did not know what to do with the feelings blooming in her chest. Back at the lodge, they shed their winter gear. Nathan built up the fire while Diana made hot chocolate, rich and thick and topped with marshmallows she found in the pantry. "You're spoiling me," Nathan said, accepting the mug with a real smile that transformed his face. "Consider it payment for letting me crash your solitude." They settled on the couch, closer than before. Diana found herself telling him about her ex, about the slow dissolution of trust and respect, about how she had ignored the red flags because she was afraid of being alone. "He called me boring," Diana said, staring into her mug. "Said I was too focused on work, too serious, that I didn't know how to have fun." "He was an idiot," Diana laughed. "You barely know me. I know enough. You're passionate about your work, which isn't boring, it's admirable. You're thoughtful and kind. You're brave enough to knock on a stranger's door in a blizzard and strong enough to hike through snow without complaining. And you make excellent hot chocolate. That ex of yours didn't deserve you." Diana felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Nathan set down his mug and turned to face her fully. "Diana, I know this is complicated. You're leaving tomorrow and we live in the same city but completely different worlds, but I have to be honest with you. These past 2 days, you've reminded me what it feels like to be seen as a person, not a bank account or a CEO or a means to an end. I don't want you to leave without knowing that." Diana's breath caught. "Nathan, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." But Diana was already moving, closing the distance between them. She cupped his face in her hands and kissed him, soft and tentative. Nathan froze for a heartbeat, then pulled her close, deepening the kiss with a hunger that made Diana's head spin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "That was unexpected," he murmured. "Good unexpected or bad unexpected, the best unexpected." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. "Stay another day, the roads won't be fully clear anyway." "Stay with me." Diana knew she should say no. This was moving too fast, too intense, but her heart was overruling her head. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. They spent the rest of the day wrapped up in each other, talking and kissing and simply being together. Nathan told her about his childhood, about growing up middle class and building his company from nothing, about the surreal experience of sudden wealth and fame. Deanna shared her dreams of opening her own gallery someday, of creating a space where art could be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy elite. I could help with that, Nathan said. Fund it, I mean. Deanna pulled back slightly. Nathan, no, I don't want your money. Why not? If I can help make your dream happen, because then it becomes about you helping me instead of me achieving it. I need to do this myself. Can you understand that? Nathan was quiet, then nodded slowly. I can. I'm sorry. I'm used to solving problems by throwing money at them. I know you meant well. Deanna kissed him softly. But I need you to see me as an equal, not someone to be saved or fixed. I do see you as an equal. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. Deanna smiled and settled back against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. For dinner, they cooked together, moving around the kitchen with laughter and stolen kisses. Nathan told terrible jokes that made Deanna groan, and she retaliated by flicking water at him from the sink. It felt domestic and comfortable and terrifying in its intensity. After dinner, they settled back on the couch, and Deanna felt bold enough to ask the question that had been nagging at her. You said you have secrets. Is there anything else I should know? Nathan tensed slightly. There is something. It's complicated. Tell me. He took a deep breath. My company is in the middle of a hostile takeover attempt. A competitor has been buying up shares, trying to get enough to force me out. The board is divided. Half want me to fight it, half think I should take the buyout offer and walk away with billions. What do you want? That's the problem. I don't know any more. I built that company from nothing. It's my legacy. But I'm also tired, Deanna. Tired of the constant pressure, the politics, the fighting. Coming here, meeting you, it's made me realize how much I've been sacrificing for the company. I can't remember the last time I just felt happy. Deanna took his hand. What happens if you lose the company? I'd still be wealthy beyond reason. I could do anything I wanted, travel, pursue other interests, actually have a life. He laughed bitterly. But I'd also feel like I failed, like I let down everyone who believed in me. Or you could see it as choosing yourself for once. There's no shame in that, Nathan. He looked at her with such intensity it made her shiver. How are you so wise? I'm not. I just care about you and want you to be happy. I'm happy right now, right here with you. They made love that night, slow and tender, learning each other's bodies with reverent touches. Deanna had never felt so connected to another person, so completely seen and valued. When Nathan whispered her name like a prayer, she knew she was falling in love with him. Consequences be damned. The next morning, Deanna woke wrapped in Nathan's arms in his bedroom. Sunlight streamed through the windows and she could hear birds singing outside. It should have been perfect, but reality was creeping in. Her phone, plugged in on the nightstand, showed multiple missed calls and messages. The rental company confirming delivery of the replacement car. Her assistant asking when she would be back. Her mother checking in. Nathan stirred beside her, his hand tightening on her waist. Morning, he mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. Morning. Deanna turned to face him, memorizing every detail of his face in the soft light. The car's being delivered today. I know, he kissed her forehead. I don't want you to go. I don't want to go either. So don't, stay here with me, we can figure out the rest later. Deanna wanted to say yes so badly it hurt, but she forced herself to think clearly. Nathan, I have a life in Seattle, a job, an apartment, responsibilities. I can't just disappear. Come back then, this weekend, I'll still be here. You said you have to deal with the takeover situation. Nathan sighed. I do. I've been avoiding the board's calls, but I can't hide forever. I need to go back to Seattle soon and face everything. Then let's do this right. Deanna sat up, pulling the sheet around her. We both go back to our real lives. We see how we fit in each other's actual worlds, not just this bubble we've created here. If it's real, it'll survive reality. Nathan sat up too, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I hate that you're right. I know. I hate it too. They spent the morning clinging to each other, both trying to pretend that the day was not moving forward. But eventually, the sound of a truck pulling up outside shattered their illusion. Diana's replacement car had arrived. She dressed in her own clothes, now clean and dry. Nathan had been quiet since the truck arrived, his expression closed off again. Deanna worried she was seeing him retreat back behind his walls. Nathan, she said, touching his arm, talk to me. I'm terrified, he admitted. Terrified that once you leave here, once you see how complicated my real life is, you'll decide I'm not worth it. That won't happen. You don't know that. The media attention, the constant scrutiny, the people who will say you're only with me for money, it's a lot to deal with, Deanna. She cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. I'm not afraid of complicated. I'm afraid of losing you before we even have a chance to try. Nathan kissed her desperately. Give me your number. Your real number, not just the one you gave the rental company. Deanna laughed through sudden tears and rattled it off. Nathan immediately called it so she would have his. Call me when you get home safely, he said. And Deanna, I meant everything I said, every word. So did I. One more kiss, long and achingly sweet, and then Deanna forced herself to walk out the door. The new rental car was waiting, its engine already running, courtesy of the delivery driver who had quickly departed in a company truck. Diana looked back at the lodge one last time. Nathan stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm interior light, watching her. He raised one hand in farewell. Diana got in the car and drove away, her vision blurred by tears. The drive back to Seattle felt interminable. Deanna's mind kept replaying the past 3 days, analyzing every conversation, every touch, every moment. Had it been real? Or just a product of proximity and extraordinary circumstances? Her phone rang when she was an hour from home. Nathan's name lit up the screen. Hey, she answered, her voice embarrassingly eager. Hey, just wanted to hear your voice. Are you driving safely? Yes, Mother Hen, the roads are clear and I'm being careful. Good, a pause. I miss you already. Is that pathetic? If it is, then I'm pathetic too. I keep thinking about this morning. Diana, about what you said, taking things slow and being smart, you were right. But I want you to know that I'm serious about this. About us. I'm serious too, Nathan. But we both have things we need to deal with before we can figure out what this is. I know. I'm meeting with the board tomorrow. I'm going to make some decisions about the company. Whatever you decide, make sure it's for you, not because of anyone else. Even you, especially me. I want you to choose your own happiness, Nathan. If that includes me, amazing. But it has to be your choice. She could hear the smile in his voice. How did I get so lucky to find you in a snowstorm? I ask myself the same thing, though technically I found you. They talked for the rest of the drive, only hanging up when Deanna pulled into her apartment parking lot. She sat in the car for a moment after the call ended, feeling unmoored. Her apartment, her life, everything felt less real than the past 3 days in the mountains. Inside, her apartment was exactly as she had left it. Tidy, organized, filled with art books and carefully curated pieces. But it felt empty now. Lonely. Deanna took a long shower and made herself dinner, but she could not stop checking her phone. Nathan sent her a text with a photo of the sunset from the lodge deck. She sent back a photo of her view, a brick wall and a sliver of sky between buildings. Nathan, that's depressing. Deanna, welcome to my glamorous life. Nathan, I'd be happy in a cardboard box if you were there. Diana felt her heart squeeze. She was falling so hard and so fast it was terrifying. The next few days passed in a blur of work and constant texting. Diana threw herself into preparations for a new exhibit, grateful for the distraction. But her mind kept drifting to Nathan, wondering how his board meeting had gone, what decisions he was making. Then, 4 days after she had left the lodge, her phone rang. Nathan, but this time via video call. "Hey," she answered, and her breath caught. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his expression strained. "Hey, can you talk?" "Of course." "What happened?" "I met with the board. It was brutal, Deanna. They're split down the middle and the takeover bid is more serious than I thought. If I don't make a decision soon, the choice will be made for me." "What are your options?" "Fight the takeover, which means months or years of legal battles and potentially destroying the company in the process. Or accept their offer, walk away with a huge payout, and let someone else run the company I built." "What does your gut tell you?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "That I'm tired of fighting. That maybe it's time to let go and build something new, something that doesn't consume my entire life." "Then maybe that's your answer." "The board thinks I'm crazy. My investors think I'm giving up. But Deanna, I keep thinking about those days at the lodge. That's the most present I've felt in years, and I want more of that. More life, less corporate warfare." Deanna felt tears sting her eyes. "Then take it, Nathan. Choose yourself. There's something else. If I take the deal, there's going to be a media firestorm. Everyone's going to want to know why I'm walking away from billions. They're going to dig into my life, and eventually they're going to find out about you." Deanna's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if we do this, if we try to make this relationship work, you're going to be thrust into the spotlight. Photographers, reporters, gossip sites. They're going to dig into your past, contact your ex, interview anyone who's ever known you. It won't be easy." "Are you trying to scare me away?" "No, God, no. I'm trying to be honest about what being with me means. I need you to know what you're signing up for." Deanna thought about it, really thought about it. The idea of that level of scrutiny was terrifying. But when she imagined her life without Nathan, without seeing where this connection could go, that was even more frightening. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. "We'll figure it out together." Nathan's expression transformed, relief and love shining through the exhaustion. "I don't deserve you." "Stop saying that. We deserve each other." They talked for another hour, making plans. Nathan would finalize the deal with his board, then take some time off before deciding his next move. Deanna would continue with her work but keep her schedule flexible. They would date properly, figure out how to navigate his fame and wealth while building something real between them. 2 weeks later, the news broke. Nathan Foster, Billionaire CEO, was stepping down from Foster Technologies in a deal reportedly worth over $3 billion. The business world was shocked. The media went into a frenzy, speculating about his reasons. Diana watched the news coverage from her apartment, her stomach in knots. Nathan had warned her it would be big, but seeing his face plastered across every news site and hearing endless speculation was surreal. Her phone rang. "Nathan, are you watching this circus?" he asked. "Yes. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. I gave one statement saying it was time for new leadership and new challenges, and I'm ignoring everything else. My lawyers are handling the rest." He paused. "I'm coming over. Is that okay?" "More than okay. Please come." Nathan arrived 20 minutes later, and Deanna barely got the door open before he was pulling her into his arms, kissing her like he had been starving for her. Maybe he had been. Deanna certainly felt that way. "I've missed you so much," Nathan murmured against her lips. "These past 2 weeks have been hell. You're here now. That's what matters." They spent the evening tangled together on her couch, talking and touching and simply being close. Nathan seemed lighter somehow, as if a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "So what now?" Deanna asked, playing with his fingers. "What does a former billionaire CEO do with his time?" "Well, I'm still a billionaire, just not a CEO." Nathan smiled. "And I was thinking about what you said about your dream of opening a gallery." "Nathan, I told you, I know you want to do it yourself. And you should. But what if I told you I want to do something similar? Create a foundation that funds arts education and makes art accessible to underserved communities. I'd need someone with actual expertise to help me set it up. Someone who understands both the art world and the importance of making culture available to everyone, not just the wealthy." Deanna sat up, her eyes wide. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a partnership. You'd have full creative control, a generous salary, and the funding to make real change. We'd be working together, but you wouldn't be beholden to me. It would be a legitimate professional relationship." Diana's mind was racing. It was an incredible opportunity, the kind she had always dreamed of. But it also complicated things between them. "What if we don't work out?" she asked quietly. "Romantically, I mean. What happens to the foundation? It continues." "Deanna, I'm not doing this to trap you or manipulate you. I'm doing it because I genuinely believe we could make a difference together. And yes, I'd love to work with the woman I'm falling in love with, but the foundation would exist regardless of our relationship status." "You're falling in love with me." Deanna's voice was barely a whisper. Nathan cupped her face tenderly. "I'm way past falling. I'm already there. I love you, Deanna Bennett. I love your passion and your strength and your terrible jokes and the way you make me want to be better. I love how you see me as a person, not a bank account. I love everything about you." Deanna felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too. I tried not to. I told myself it was too fast, too intense, too complicated, but I can't help it. I love you, Nathan." They kissed through tears and laughter, and Diana felt something settle in her chest. This was right. Against all odds and logic, this was exactly right. Over the next few months, they built their life together. Diana accepted Nathan's offer, and they spent long days planning the foundation, choosing which programs to fund, which communities to serve. They rented office space in downtown Seattle, hired a small staff, and threw themselves into the work, and they fell deeper in love. Nathan was thoughtful and generous, always considering Diana's needs and feelings. He learned her coffee order and made sure her favorite pastries were always stocked in the office. He listened when she talked about her day and remembered small details she mentioned in passing. Deanna learned that beneath Nathan's gruff exterior was a deeply caring man who had been hurt and guarded. She saw how he came alive when talking about the foundation's work, how much he genuinely wanted to make a difference. She watched him laugh with the kids in their after-school art programs, and saw the boy he must have been before wealth and responsibility hardened him. The media attention was intense at first. There were photographers outside Diana's apartment, reporters calling her mother, ridiculous rumors about her being a gold digger or having some ulterior motive. It was invasive and uncomfortable, and sometimes frightening, but Nathan was there through all of it. He hired security when a photographer got too aggressive. He publicly defended Diana in an interview, making it clear that anyone who wanted to attack her would have to go through him first. He held her when the stress became too much and reminded her why they were doing this. 6 months after the snowstorm, the foundation held its first major event, a gala fundraiser to support expanding their programs. Diana wore a deep blue gown that made Nathan's eyes darken with appreciation. He wore a classic tuxedo and looked like he had stepped out of a magazine. "You're staring," Diana said, adjusting his bow tie. "Can you blame me? You're stunning." The gala was a massive success. They raised over $2 million, and Diana watched Nathan work the room with ease, charming donors and speaking passionately about their mission. This was a different side of him, the businessman and leader she had only glimpsed before. It was incredibly attractive. Late in the evening, Nathan pulled Diana onto the dance floor. As they swayed to a slow song, he leaned down and whispered in her ear, "Move in with me." Diana pulled back to look at him. "What? Move in with me? I bought a house, something more practical than the lodge. It has a huge studio space that would be perfect for you. Space for both of us to work, to build our life together. I want to wake up next to you every morning, Diana. I want to build something permanent with you." Diana felt her heart swell. "Yes, absolutely yes." Nathan's smile was blinding. He kissed her right there on the dance floor in front of all the donors and board members and guests, and Diana did not care who was watching or what anyone thought. They moved in together the following month. The house Nathan had bought was beautiful, a modern craftsman in a quiet neighborhood with huge windows that let in floods of natural light. True to his word, there was a massive studio space where Diana could work on her own art projects and curatorial work. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. They worked together at the foundation during the day, expanding their programs and partnerships. Evenings were spent cooking dinner together, watching movies, talking about everything and nothing. Weekends they explored Seattle, visited museums and galleries, took long walks in the parks. Nathan surprised Diana with trips to the mountain lodge, those stolen weekends becoming precious time away from the world. They would hike through the woods, make love by the fireplace, and remember where everything had started. 1 year to the day after Diana had knocked on that door in a snowstorm, Nathan took her back to the lodge. It was winter again, though no storm threatened this time. They had snowshoed out to the spot where Nathan had told her who he really was, where walls had started to come down. "Diana," Nathan said, taking her hands, "a year ago I was hiding from the world, convinced that I could never let anyone close again, and then you literally crashed into my life. You saw past the money and the reputation and the walls I had built. You saw me, the real me." He dropped to one knee in the snow, pulling out a small velvet box. Diana's hands flew to her mouth. "You challenged me and supported me and made me want to be the best version of myself. You've given me more happiness in this past year than I've had in my entire adult life. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. Diana Bennett, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, unique and stunning. But Diana barely saw it through her tears. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, of course, yes." Nathan stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her as snow began to fall around them, gentle and soft. Diana laughed through her tears, thinking about how far they had come from that first hostile meeting. "I was so rude to you," Nathan said, echoing her thoughts. "I almost turned you away into that blizzard. But you didn't, and look at us now. Look at us now," he repeated, wonder in his voice. They married 6 months later in a small, intimate ceremony at the lodge. Only close friends and family attended. Diana's mother cried happy tears the entire time. Nathan's college roommate, the one friend who had stuck by him through his rise to fame, served as best man. Diana wore a simple white gown and carried wildflowers. Nathan could not stop smiling, his usual reserve completely abandoned. When they exchanged vows, his voice cracked with emotion. "Diana, you saved me. Not from a snowstorm, though you certainly think you knocked on my door that night, but you saved me from a life of isolation and mistrust. You taught me how to be vulnerable again, how to let someone in. You are my home, my partner, my best friend. I promise to spend every day making you as happy as you make me. Diana's vows were no less emotional. Nathan, you challenge me to be braver, bolder, more myself. You support my dreams while building new ones with me. You've shown me what real partnership looks like, what it means to be truly seen and loved. I promise to stand by you through whatever comes, to always choose us, to build the most beautiful life with you. They honeymooned in Italy, spending 3 weeks exploring art galleries and museums, eating incredible food, and being completely absorbed in each other. Nathan had never looked more relaxed, more content. Diana caught him several times just watching her with this soft expression that made her heart melt. 2 years into their marriage, Diana walked into Nathan's home office and found him staring at his computer screen with an intense focus she recognized. "What's going on?" she asked. Nathan looked up, his expression conflicted. "I got a call today from the new CEO of Foster Technologies. The Sustainable Energy Division has run into some technical problems. They're asking if I'd consult, help them work through it." "What did you say?" "That I'd think about it." He leaned back in his chair. "Part of me wants to say no to keep that part of my life in the past, but another part misses the work, the problem solving. I built that technology, I could help them." Diana came around the desk and sat on his lap. "So help them. You can consult on your own terms. It doesn't have to take over your life like before. You wouldn't mind, Nathan. The foundation isn't going anywhere. We have a great team. If you want to do some consulting work, do it. You're allowed to have interests outside of what we built together." Nathan kissed her gratefully. "Have I told you lately that you're amazing?" "Not in the last hour. Better remedy that." He did, thoroughly and enthusiastically. Nathan took the consulting position, working a few days a month with Foster Technologies. He loved the intellectual challenge of the work without the stress of running the entire company. It was the perfect balance. Meanwhile, the foundation continued to grow. They expanded into 5 new cities, bringing art education to thousands of children. Diana curated a traveling exhibition showcasing work by young artists from their programs, and it was received with critical acclaim. 3 years into their marriage, Diana found herself feeling oddly emotional and exhausted. She tried to brush it off as stress from work, but when the fatigue continued, Nathan insisted she see a doctor. The news was unexpected and wonderful. Diana was pregnant. She told Nathan that evening over dinner. He stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he was up and around the table, pulling her into his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. "We're having a baby," he kept repeating. "We're having a baby." "Are you happy?" Diana asked, though she could see the answer on his face. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. "Diana, you've given me everything. A life I love, work that matters, and now this. A family." Nathan was protective and attentive throughout the pregnancy, perhaps too much so. Diana had to remind him several times that she was pregnant, not made of glass. But his concern came from love, and she could not really complain. Their daughter was born on a snowy December evening, entering the world with a lusty cry that made both parents laugh through tears. They named her Grace, for the grace that had brought them together. Nathan held his daughter with such tenderness that Diana fell in love with him all over again. He was a natural father, patient and loving, getting up for night feedings and diaper changes without complaint. "She has your eyes," Nathan said one night, staring down at Grace sleeping in his arms. "She has your stubborn chin," Diana countered. "God help us all." 2 years later, they welcomed a son, James. the house filled with laughter and chaos and love. Nathan scaled back his consulting work to spend more time with the children. Deanna shifted her role at the foundation to allow for more remote work. They moved their family between the city house and the mountain lodge, wanting their children to grow up with an appreciation for both culture and nature. Grace and James learned to hike before they could read, to appreciate art alongside snowball fights. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Deanna returned to the lodge alone, Grace and James staying with Diana's mother for the weekend. They sat by the fireplace, just as they had that first night, remembering how it all began. "You ever wonder what would have happened if that storm had never hit?" Deanna asked, curled into Nathan's side. "All the time. I was so close to turning you away that night. What changed your mind?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, your eyes. Even though you were freezing and desperate, there was this fire in them, this determination. I saw someone who was a survivor, who would not quit even when things were hard, and something in me recognized something in you. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Deanna tilted her face up to kiss him. "I'm glad you were rude enough to make me want to figure you out. I'm glad you were stubborn enough to see past it." They made love in front of the fireplace, taking their time, relearning curves and hollows they knew by heart. Afterward, tangled together under a blanket, Diana felt overwhelming gratitude for the storm that had brought her here, to this man, to this life. "I love you," she said. "Thank you for opening that door." "I love you too. Thank you for knocking." The fire crackled. Snow fell gently outside, and two people who had been strangers in a storm lay wrapped in each other's arms, completely and perfectly home. Years continued to unfold with grace and joy. The foundation expanded internationally, bringing art education to communities across the globe. Diana eventually published a book about accessible art education that became required reading in museum studies programs. Nathan developed new sustainable technologies as an independent researcher, freed from corporate pressures. Grace grew into a thoughtful teenager with her mother's passion for art and her father's analytical mind. James was more adventurous, always ready to explore the mountains or try something new. Both children grew up knowing they were deeply loved, seeing daily examples of what a true partnership looked like. On their 20th anniversary, the whole family returned to the mountain lodge. It had become a tradition, this place where everything began. Grace and James, now old enough to appreciate the story, asked their parents to tell them again about that snowy night. Nathan and Diana looked at each other and smiled. They had told this story countless times, but it never got old. "Your mother knocked on my door during the worst blizzard in 20 years, Nathan began. "And your father was the rudest man I had ever met," Deanna continued. "But you stayed anyway." "But I stayed anyway." Grace and James rolled their eyes affectionately. They had heard this story their whole lives, but they still loved it, still wanted to hear how their parents had found each other against all odds. That night, after the children were asleep, Nathan and Diana stood on the deck, watching snow fall through the darkness. Nathan wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, and Deanna leaned back against his solid warmth. "Do you remember what you said to me that first morning?" Nathan asked. "When I was being particularly difficult, I said a lot of things. You were very difficult. You said that being rude to someone who had done nothing to me just made me seem like a jerk. You weren't afraid to call me out. Someone needed to." Deanna turned in his arms. "You were hiding from everything, including yourself, and you refused to let me." Nathan cupped her face tenderly, his thumb tracing the lines around her eyes, signs of 20 years of laughter and love. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Deanna Foster. You and our life together. Even though I crashed your solitude, especially because you crashed my solitude." They kissed under the falling snow, two people who had found each other in a storm and built something lasting and beautiful. The fire burned warm inside, their children slept safe and loved, and somewhere in the distance, a new storm was brewing. But it did not matter. They had weathered every storm together, and they always would, because some love stories begin with a knock on a door during a blizzard. Some love stories begin with rudeness and reluctance, and two people who thought they wanted to be alone. And sometimes, those love stories become the greatest adventures of all, not despite the obstacles, but because of them. Diana Bennett had knocked on a stranger's door seeking shelter from a storm. She had found instead a home, a partner, a love that had transformed both their lives. And Nathan Foster, who had been hiding from the world, had opened that door and found himself opening his heart to possibilities he had long since given up on. 20 years, 2 children, countless adventures, and infinite love later, they stood together in the place where it all began, grateful for the storm that had brought them together and the choice they had made to let each other in. The lodge stood solid around them, witness to the beginning of their story and silent keeper of all the moments that had followed. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. Inside, a family slept peacefully, wrapped in the security of unconditional love. And two people who had once been strangers held each other close, knowing they had found something rare and precious, something worth every challenge they had faced to build it. Their love story had begun with a snowstorm and a reluctant rescue. It had grown through honesty and vulnerability, through choosing each other again and again. And it would continue, through whatever storms life might bring, because they had learned the most important lesson of all. Love is not about perfect circumstances or easy beginnings. Love is about seeing someone fully, scars and secrets and all, and choosing them anyway. Love is about knocking on doors and opening them, about taking risks and being brave. Love is about building something together that is stronger than anything you could create alone. Diana Bennett and Nathan Foster had learned that lesson in the best possible way, living it every single day. And as they stood together watching the snow fall on their 20th anniversary, they knew with absolute certainty that they would continue learning it for all the years to come. The blizzard that had brought them together was long past, but the warmth they had created, the love they had built, the family they had made together, that would last forever. And really, what more could anyone ask for than that?